All right, we're going to try this again. Apologies. I was told that our audio was muted. JB here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now. Apologies for the technical difficulties there. Again, this is a breaking news situation coming our way out of Henryetta, Oklahoma. That is east of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Apologies for the problems there with the audio, folks. But let's break down what we know about this story. A missing persons advisory went out earlier today from the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. This is a story that has been developing over the course of the day in Oklahoma, causing a lot of fear, a lot of worry, with a whole lot of people, an entire community looking for two missing young girls. Those girls by the names of Ivy Webster, 14 years old, and 16-year-old Brittany Brewer. They were last seen Monday morning, so this morning, 1:22 a.m. in Henryetta, Oklahoma. So the alert went out, and the alert went out also to be on the lookout for a potential person of interest, as well as a vehicle, a white Chevy Avalanche with an Oklahoma tag. And now we have the report coming out of Okmulgee County, Oklahoma, that the bodies of 7 people have been found on this property in Henryetta, Oklahoma. A search warrant was executed at this property at about 3 o'clock local time today, and they discovered the bodies of 7 people. Among the 7, now the medical examiner's office has to confirm the identities, but a preliminary confirmation, if you will, very preliminary confirmation has been put out by the Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office to local media, and they say that the bodies of the 2 girls, Ivy and Brittany, were located on this property, as well as the body of James McFadden, a 39-year-old who did serve prison time for rape. And the bodies of 4 other people. The 4 other people who were found dead on this property. We don't know if it's recent. We don't know if the bodies had been there for some time. You can see here from the chopper signal that there is some blue tarp on the ground that is usually put out, of course, by authorities to preserve evidence, as well as to prevent any news helicopters or any news cameras in the area from getting line of sight. Of course, family members could be watching, and those family members might be living through their very worst nightmare today, as we get news again that a total of 7 bodies have been found on this property in Henryetta, including those of 2 missing Oklahoma teens. Those names again are Brittany Brewer and Ivy Webster. In fact, I think I have some photos loaded up here for you. This is a very low-res photo of Brittany Brewer, 16 years old. And then I believe we have another photo. Let's see here. I believe we have this photo of Brittany, and then we might also have a secondary photo, yes, of Ivy Webster, 16 years old, provided by the Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office, or Department, excuse me, out of the state of Oklahoma. Extremely disturbing story. As we're getting this chopper signal, by the way, everybody, this is on a replay. So this is from about an hour or so ago. I believe this is about roughly an hour or so ago. And let's go over the latest from KFOR. So I'll read this. Oklahoma Highway Patrol. This was earlier today. So let's go over what we originally found out, and then we'll go over the updates. What was originally reported was that Oklahoma Highway Patrol looking for 2 missing and possibly at-risk and endangered teenagers. The risk resulted in an Amber Alert that was put out by the Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office out of Oklahoma. 14-year-old Ivy Webster, 16-year-old Brittany Brewer. They were last seen Monday morning at 1:22 a.m. According to the Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office, Webster was supposed to return home by 5 o'clock p.m. yesterday, that being Sunday, after spending the weekend with a friend, but didn't make it home. Or, didn't show up. There's a clear difference there. Webster was reported to be staying with a Holly McFadden, her daughter, and Jesse McFadden. It was thought the group went to a ranch in McAllister, but the sheriff's office says that didn't in fact happen. Investigators also say that at some point, Brittany Brewer was picked up Saturday night by this group. Ivy Webster was last seen wearing a black Vans hoodie, blue jeans with large holes at the knee, and black shoes. Brittany Brewer was last seen wearing a black bathing suit, blue shorts with flowers, and white tennis shoes. They were said to possibly be traveling in a white Chevy Avalanche with Jesse McFadden. McFadden had been convicted of rape, and he has served time in prison. The sheriff's office also requested assistance from the District 25 Violent Crime Task Force to assist in this case. And if you, of course, people were putting out online that if you see the teens or McFadden, that you were asked to call the Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office in Oklahoma. Chief Deputy Smokey Patchen was the lead investigator on this case over the course of today. Then the update came down at approximately 4:15 local time that 7 bodies were found on a property here in Henryetta. Both reports say that the bodies of missing teens had been located along with James McFadden and 4 other people. Then another update went out that the Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office confirmed that they believe the bodies of 14-year-old Ivy Webster and 16-year-old Brittany Brewer have been found on the property in Henryetta. They then followed up with a third update saying that the medical examiner is awaiting confirmation from the medical examiner's office to confirm the identity of those found. But the sheriff's office said that they executed a search warrant, and that's when they discovered the bodies. So that brings us to where we are with what is just a terrifying story. I believe that we have a reporter now that is standing by. Let's see if we can bring in his feed. He is, I think, preparing for a live report. So we'll try to come back to that if we can in just a moment. That's from KFOR, our sister station in Oklahoma. So again, apologies, everybody, for the technical difficulties at the beginning of this live stream. If you're still hanging out with us, we really appreciate that. My audio is muted somewhere between us and getting out to you, and I don't know where it was muted. I was under the impression that I was feeding out audio, but there was a problem, of course. So thank you for bearing with us. But really, just an absolutely terrifying story out of Henryetta, Oklahoma. And so exactly where that is, and I believe it's about, I want to say, is it half an hour away from Oklahoma City? We'll try to do I know it's east of Oklahoma City. We'll try to give you, there's I-40. We'll try to give everybody a idea as to how far away it is from Oklahoma City itself. No, I'm wrong. It's not half an hour. It's about 90 minutes, maybe a little bit less, east of downtown Oklahoma City. So as far as what we're looking at here on your scene, you can see that there's a lot of vehicles that are pulled onto this rural property in Henryetta, Oklahoma. And it's of course extremely concerning that we're seeing the blue tarp that has been put out. We do not know what is under that blue tarp. We have, of course, seen blue tarp be used in the past to cover bodies or other evidence at a crime scene, something specifically that authorities don't think should be seen by news helicopters above. And so as we see the blue tarp here on this property, that, of course, we cannot say for certain what is underneath there. But, of course, that is noteworthy in and of itself. And we can also see that the chopper photographer here is zooming in quite a bit and looking for anything else of note. Again, this is not live. This is no longer live. This was live about an hour ago. And we got word that this was all developing. And by the time that we got up on the live stream, they had ended their live feed. The chopper had to go down, refuel. However, now that we have the video re-queued, we can look at this a little bit more close. And if we see anything, we can also pause the video. But, I mean, my goodness, you can see just how rural of a property this is. Now, why exactly the search warrant was performed here, whose property this is, I do not believe that is clear at this time. And we also have to note now, based on the preliminary report that has been put out, it is believed that of the 7 bodies, 2 are of the missing young girls, 14, 16 years old, as well as the convict by the name of James McFadden, again, served prison time for a rape conviction. And he was due in court on Monday for soliciting new charges of soliciting a minor and possession of child pornography. But as far as the other 4, we have not been given any word or any details on the identity of the additional 4 bodies. We're talking about 7 bodies total that have been found on this property, according to local authorities here in Okmulgee County, Oklahoma. But who those other 4 people are, we just don't know. Now, it's worth noting that there are others mentioned in this story. Again, according to the Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office, Ivy Webster was supposed to return home 5 o'clock Sunday night, so 5 o'clock last night, after spending the weekend with a friend who was not identified, but that she didn't show up. Webster was reported to be staying with Holly McFadden, Holly's daughter, and a Jesse McFadden. It was thought that the group went to a ranch in McAllister, but the sheriff's office says that did not happen. Investigators say also at some point that Brittany Brewer, one of the missing girls, the missing 16-year-old, was picked up Saturday night by the group. So we don't know if the other bodies belong to anybody else connected to this story, notably a Holly McFadden and her daughter. We also don't know the relationship that Holly McFadden has with Jesse McFadden, whether they are siblings or cousins or husband and wife. We don't know. We're waiting, of course, on word from authorities in Oklahoma. You can also see this is noteworthy. I'm not sure what is across the street here on this. There appears to be. I'm not sure if this is an active junkyard of some kind or just a dumping ground for the area. People coming by and just dumping off their trash. But clearly, there's a dumpster or 2 on that property. You can see that there's just a lot of debris about. And so a lot of attention has been focused, of course, across the street, but you can see that the chopper photographer was getting some video of that area too. Here we see a structure and don't know if that is, it's hard to tell property lines, right? It's difficult from a news chopper when you're talking about a rural county like this to find out where properties begin and where properties end. So we can't really tell from the sky here as to whether or not this particular structure is located on the property that they executed the search warrant on. And to tell you the truth, we don't even know which property it is that the search warrant was performed on at 3 o'clock local time today. We can only go based on what we're seeing here from the sky. And the chopper photographer might be just doing their due diligence in getting video of as many structures as possible, so that if the chopper, of course, lands and then they say, oh, it was actually in this house where bodies were found, that they have video of that house. So this could be very procedural as far as what we call in news spraying the scene. You can do it from the sky, where you're paying attention to not just a particular address, but even addresses or structures around the particular address that you're told to focus on. As we see here, this is believed to be law enforcement vehicles, whether they're marked or I think that they're mostly unmarked. So I'm paying attention to our feeds here in the Stream Center because I believe we have this report. Let's listen in. All right, I think he is still practicing for his live report. Let's see. I have another feed here. We're going to try to bring up another feed. Here in the Stream Center, we're getting a lot of different feeds that are popping up in real time, and I think that they're just reporters who are preparing for their turn on live television. So we'll go to this one here as an example and show you a different now live reporter who is at that scene in Oklahoma. So if we see any of them speaking, even though I keep clicking on the button to show you them speaking, but it appears that they're just getting ready and mouthing words. If we see them actually begin their live report, we'll try to transition back to that. But again, this is from, you can see it here on your screen, Oklahoma News 4. And this is a developing story out of Oklahoma. Henryetta, which is about an hour and a half east, roughly, an hour and a half east of Oklahoma City, where these bodies have been found. Let's start by, as we await some of these live reports, why don't we say hello to our Facebook Live and YouTube Live audience? You can use, starting now, you can use hashtag HeyJB, and I'll try to animate as many comments on screen as we can. Try to get, try to interactively try to answer some questions, address some comments. Appreciate everybody joining us here on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, where we can have a bit of a back and forth conversation with you. I see Jessica, Shane, Sandy, Meg, Colton, Mary Beth joining us on Facebook Live, Alexandra, Leslie, Bruce, and a few others joining us here on YouTube Live. Scooter wants to know, hashtag HeyJB, what kind of car did the girls have? It was a white, well, they said to be on the lookout for a white Chevy Avalanche. It's a pickup truck. So who exactly owned that vehicle is unclear. Alexandra wants to know, did the SO own or rent the property? We have no idea. Fast chat, hashtag HeyJB, what brought them to the property to execute the search warrant? Did some see the truck from the road? Well, look, so if the search warrant is being executed at the property, it could be a variety of different reasons. Perhaps it was a property connected to a person of interest, a family member of one of the missing teens. The reason for executing this search warrant in Henryetta is unclear, at least according to the most recent reports that I have, which are about, I think, 20 to 30 minutes old. We're waiting on updates on this story. So what connection the property itself has to the point of the commenter? Did someone see that truck maybe turn into the property, or are they familiar with that truck and know we don't know. And we don't want to go too far down the speculative rabbit hole. We want to try to, of course, keep things as focused on the facts as absolutely as possible. Yeah, so I see here, I want to bring up another news station because there's other news stations that are reporting on this. And I want to thank and reporters, let me explain. So reporters of different stations are going to have different connections and sources within a law enforcement agency. So sometimes what you'll find is a different news station in town reporting a different set, or not different, but maybe additional information that other stations don't have. So I'm looking here now at, let's see, this is KTUL. That's the NBC station in Tulsa. And they are reporting that it is Jesse McFadden's property. And so go here to Tristan. So Tristan was the one who pointed out that KTUL is reporting that that is McFadden's property. And that is indeed correct, that KTUL, the NBC affiliate, or excuse me, ABC affiliate in Tulsa, Oklahoma, say they're reporting that this is suspect Jesse McFadden's property on the outskirts of Henryetta. So thank you to Tristan. And this is why, of course, when we go live on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, a lot going on. Here, let's pay attention here.
Of what we've been learning from the Okmulgee County Sheriff, they say 7 bodies were found here today on this property just a few miles east of central Henryetta on Holly Road. They say that they came here to execute a search warrant around 3 p.m. and that's when they found these bodies. Now, 2 of those 7 bodies are believed to be 14-year-old Ivy Webster and 16-year-old Brittany Brewer, who have been missing since about 1:30 this morning. But the medical examiner says that they are actively working to confirm the identity of all the bodies found here today. The 2 missing girls were believed to be with James McFadden when they disappeared. McFadden being a registered sex offender who has been convicted of a rape conviction in the past. We're told by authorities that this scene, this property right here, is that of McFadden's. Now, there are a lot of law enforcement here in the scene. They're going to be actively investigating, I'm sure, for many more hours. We're told that OSBI has now taken the lead on this investigation, but any updates that occur from now to the rest of the night, we'll give it to you live here in Henryetta. Kitra K, Oklahoma's News 4.
OSBI is Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations. So that's also a new detail, that the state is taking over the investigation here and taking over efforts when it comes to, again, the discovery of 7 bodies total, if you're just joining us, found in the search for 2 missing Oklahoma teenage girls, a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. And then you just heard the reporter for, again, our sister station KFOR report. Well, we were just sharing out from KTUL that this is Jesse McFadden's property. Who is Jesse McFadden? Jesse McFadden, I don't know if he was ever given a label, as far as a label such as a suspect or a person of interest, but when the Amber Alert went out, and it was an alert that, I'll see if I can bring it up here. I don't know if I can bring it up on my screen, but it was an alert that I'm reading it here. Oklahoma Highway Patrol's Endangered Missing Persons Advisory for an at-risk and missing person or persons. And Jesse McFadden was listed on there, 39 years old, 5'6", 150 pounds, and that they were looking for McFadden and the 2 missing girls, 14-year-old Ivy Webster, 16-year-old Brittany Brewer, as well as that Chevy Avalanche. It's a white pickup vehicle with the Oklahoma tag of LRW469. Yeah, if seen, call 911. So they were last seen, very curious to know, Ivy Webster and Brittany Brewer were both last seen this morning, alive, at 1:22 a.m., at an address in Henryetta, Oklahoma. Now, who said that they were last seen alive, of course, is important to the story. Because it's interesting, again, going back to the timeline, that I believe it was Webster. Make sure I have this correct here from my notes. Webster was supposed to come home at 5 o'clock Sunday, never returned home. But someone saw the pair, both girls, at 1 a.m. in Henryetta, 1:22 a.m. So let's go over what we don't know. We've been talking a lot about what we do know, but let's just quickly review, without speculating, let's just quickly review what we don't know. We don't know how they died. We don't know if a killer is on the loose. We don't know if the killer is among the deceased. We don't know the 4 others. And to tell you the truth, we don't know the identities of all 7, but a preliminary report has been put out to the media, local media, to let people know that they believe that of the 7 bodies, 2 are of the missing girls and 1 is of a Jesse McFadden. I want to see here on Facebook Live, we have some folks who are commenting all the way from Oklahoma. I want to see if I can bring this up. If Facebook will cooperate. Someone is saying on Facebook Live that Holly or 3 kids, Jesse, I can't read the full comment because Facebook is glitching out on me a little bit. Let's go to KTUL's story. They're reporting that according to deputies, Ivy Webster went with a friend, Tiffany, and her friend's parents, Holly and Jesse McFadden, to the McAllister area on Saturday to work on a ranch and was supposed to return home at around 5 o'clock Sunday, but didn't return home. Investigators also learned that another juvenile from Henryetta, Brittany Brewer, was also picked up and missing with those people. The Oklahoma Sex Offender Registry, according to KTUL, shows that Jesse McFadden is on the registry for first-degree rape. And that they're also reporting from deputies that the McFadden family, they are known to drive the white Chevrolet Avalanche truck with black wheels. Again, KTUL. Who we're sourcing here on that particular thread of information. And again, this goes back to how this works in a developing story. Reporters in town, what they're doing is that they're contacting everybody that they can within a local law enforcement agency like the Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office, trying to get any details that they can. Releases get put out, and in a developing situation like this, a lot of everyone's reporting so quickly that sometimes things can overlap or veer off onto a tangent. It can get a little bit messy very quickly because everyone's just trying to get all the information out there as quickly as possible. So we're just trying to pay attention to as many news reports as we can, and also trying to find, of course, the parallels in all of those news reports as they come in. I wonder if I believe that a press conference is now being set up. All right, stick around here, folks. If you're just joining us, I'm seeing a little bit of action on some of these shots, and it appears, usually when news photographers are moving around that quickly, it's for a press conference, and I believe that is what's getting set up at the moment. So stick around because we might be getting an update. A lot of people, I'll show you this feed. Take a look. So you can see that they're setting up, and I believe I saw what appeared to be a law enforcement official in the area. So I'll pay attention to this shot. We'll come back to it if a press conference begins. But let me just point out what is being mentioned a lot in our comment section. The 2 words that I am seeing most of all, and people are wondering if this is a serial killer situation. And while we have no details at this time that give us any idea as to what transpired on this property and what led to the deaths of 7 people, including who is believed to be the 2 missing girls and also Jesse McFadden. So everyone, I know people are asking that question. Some people have just put in the comment section, serial killer ? And I understand that that's, of course, how social media is going to work. Anytime anybody sees 7 bodies being found especially in a rural place. It doesn't matter where it is. It could be in the middle of a city or on a rural property outside of Oklahoma City. It doesn't matter where it is. But now we have a press conference that is beginning. So let's go to that press conference and listen in here live.
Check. Hello. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Okay. My head is in the lower right of the frame. Is that good?
Okay. I want to preface something before we get started, so just okay. What I want to say is that one, this is a joint operation between the Okmulgee Police Department, the Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office, and the OSBI. And there's OSBI information where by statute we can only release certain things. It's very confidential. It's different than the Open Records Act that you guys normally deal with and everything. And some of the things that you may ask, because of some of the questions they've asked me today, I may have to refer you to another agency, especially when it comes to like positive identification of the victims, things like that. So I just want to get that out in the open right now. So if I'm vague on some stuff, those are the rules that I have to go by. So anyway,
Right.
okay.
If you could just start with your name
Sure.
and position title for the record.
Okay, the name is Gerald Davidson, GeraldDavidson. I'm the interim public information officer for the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation.
All right, and Gerald, what can you tell us about what happened here today?
Okay, what's going on here at the scene behind me is that there were 7 bodies found this afternoon by the District 25 Violent Crimes Task Force, and they were found on the property here at the scene.
And can you confirm what ages these bodies?
No, I cannot confirm the ages. Again, that's really the medical examiner's responsibility to confirm the identity and things such as that.
Are you able to tell us the condition the bodies are in?
No, again, that's the medical examiner. They determine, cause and manner of death, so the conditions is something that's under their investigation.
Can you tell us if a weapon?
Excuse me?
What can you tell us about what happened?
Can't tell you much about what happened. Everything is still a very fluid investigation at this time.
Can you tell us if a weapon was recovered from the property?
Again, that's part of the investigation that's still ongoing, and that's not going to be discussed right now.
Do any of these victims have any connection to McFadden, the suspect?
Don't know. There's lots of assumptions, but I couldn't say that because, again, the identification has to come from the medical examiner.
Is there anybody you're looking for?
No, there are no suspects at large right now.
Can you say where you found the bodies? Were they in the house or on the land?
They were on the property, on the land.
What are you guys going to be doing now?
What are we
What
doing?
would your people be doing here now?
Well, there's people recovering information, as far as evidence goes, and just the course of the investigation. Because again, this is a very fluid investigation going on. So that's just what's going on right now.
Was there a note or anything left behind?
I don't know anything about a note.
McFadden?
Don't know anything like
Could
that.
you be more detailed about exactly where on the land they were found?
Just on the property, just not in the residence, but just on the property. But that's about as detailed as we can get right now.
Is there any other information you can relay?
Not really, because one, we're not going to say anything that's going to jeopardize any investigation, and we're just it's going to be very vague on some things, and that's just the nature of what's going on right now.
Have you guys been in communication with loved ones?
They have been.
Can you say how long the bodies were there?
No, I cannot say how long they've been there.
Is the suspect one of the bodies?
I can't say that either. Again, that's the medical examiner's responsibility to identify them.
Is this considered a homicide investigation?
It would be considered a homicide, yes.
Are you able to talk about the search and how you guys ended up at this property?
Well, no, that on the Violent Crimes Task Force, or how?
Just what led your task force to get here to this property to find our victims?
I don't know. I'd have to get the information. I have to get back with you on that. What led them to believe that?
Is this being investigated as a murder-suicide?
I can't comment on that. I don't know. There's 7 individuals who are deceased, and again, the manner and cause of death is up to the medical examiner to decide that.
Can you kind of recap what these 2 teenagers were doing over the weekend and kind of just their activities and how they ended up with McFadden?
No, I can't comment on that. The source of that information would be whoever the agency that submitted the information on the Amber report that went out by the Highway Patrol. They're the ones who have to vet out, missing kids and stuff and decide, do they meet the criteria. So that would really be a question for that agency.
What's OSBI's role in this?
The OSBI's role is simply to assist in the investigation. We have agents out here that do interviews, and also we have agents here that do crime scene investigations. So that's the 2 major roles that the OSBI conducts.
And who would be interviewed in a situation like this?
No, we don't comment on who we're interviewing.
Can you just speak to the nature of this case and this possible crime? I mean, this is a very heavy situation.
Well, as far as the nature of the case, there's 7 individuals who died here on this property, and that's the nature of the case, to investigate, what happened and, try to identify any perpetrator and just do that. I mean, that's with any investigation such as this.
How would you describe your feelings right now, or even OSBI's, with how grave this all is?
Well, anytime someone loses their life, that's a serious situation. So that's about the best way to describe anybody's role in anything, is to say that it's something where somebody has lost a life.
Has McFadden had any criminal history, or has OSBI been aware of him before?
I couldn't comment on that. I don't know.
Will you be investigating if there was anything leading up to this, if there were any warning signs with McFadden?
Well, no, as far as warning signs, don't know about that. We'll just they'll be looking into every aspect of the investigation that's pertinent to the crime and everything. But as far as the tactics or strategy, couldn't comment on that.
Do we know when more details will be released about the victims?
Well, again, the biggest thing on the victims is, I think what you guys are interested in, are the identities, ages, things like that. So really that information truly comes from the medical examiner.
Okay. Well,
will he be speaking to us at any point?
I have no idea. You'd have to contact the medical examiner on that one.
It's just a little unusual to have this many deceased. And we know McFadden and the 2 teens, but we don't know who the others are in relation to them,
Okay. Well, as far as the relation, I mean, there's a relationship somehow, but as far as discussing who is what relation, that's not going to be discussed right this moment.
Will you be coming forward with any more information about the condition in which these bodies were found?
Well, again, we talk about the condition of the bodies. That's really the medical examiner and their investigation of the individuals.
A minute ago, you used the word perpetrator, but just to be clear, there's no one else being looked for at this point. There's nothing outside this land right here that's you're not looking for someone.
Well, okay, I said perpetrator. Maybe I just need to stand corrected on that. Perpetrator or perpetrator, because there's still evidence being processed. So if it leads to anyone else, of course, those will be followed up on. So, not to say there's any more people involved, but just so to answer your question, I'll say perpetrator or perpetrators.
I just want to be clear. There's no threat to the public. That's what the sheriff had said earlier.
Yeah, there is no threat to the community as we know it at this time.
What do you think the community of Henryetta needs to know most?
Okay, would you repeat that?
What does the community of Henryetta need to know most at this time from law enforcement concerning all of this?
Well, just like I said, there's no suspect at large that we are looking for right at this moment. So that's the most important thing, is that there's no one else out there that we're looking for at this time. So there's no threat to the community.
At this time, do you believe McFadden is the one who killed everyone?
Who did any part of this? That's again subject to the investigation. So we're a ways from having that completed. So there's no way to answer that question right now.
You don't have McFadden in custody, do you?
Excuse me?
Do you have McFadden in custody?
Huh?
Do you have McFadden in custody?
There's been no arrest in anything right now.
Thank you very much.
All right. Anything else you think we should know?
There's nothing that could be talked about at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your cooperation.
A very direct press conference by, let's get it here, Gerald Davidson, interim public information officer there in Oklahoma. Not releasing too much to the chagrin, of course, of our commenters here who were wondering, of course, how much more we were going to learn about this developing story. But, of course, let me make this clear. Public information officers, it is their responsibility to make sure that they do not release anything that is going to compromise an ongoing investigation. It is quite literally his job to release certain information and then not release other pieces of information that they have gathered in the hour since they have been here at this property in Henryetta, Oklahoma. JB here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now, live across all platforms. So this is a story that has garnered a lot of attention in the last few hours out of Henryetta, Oklahoma. This is no longer a live feed. I have to repeatedly mention that. This is live as of the last helicopter flight from news media over the property there in Henryetta, which is about 80 to 90 minutes east of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. The big thing to hammer home here as far as this press conference is that no suspects are at large. All of the bodies have been found on the land, not in the residence. And what's interesting about that, we can't speculate too much, but we have seen on this chopper feed there be blue tarp get put out. We don't know what's underneath that blue tarp, but what we have seen is different covers, what appear to be different law enforcement tarps or covers be put out on different sections of the property. Now, what exactly unfolded this May 1st, 2023 on this property in Henryetta, what led to the deaths of 7 people, including what is believed to be 2 missing teenagers, a 14 and 16-year-old Ivy and Brittany Brewer, Ivy Webster and Brittany Brewer. What happened here is unclear. But of course, it's terrifying to think about, is it not? Because we really don't know what violent act or what violent occurrence happened in the what is believed to be the early morning hours of this Sunday, May 1st. And we know early morning hours to an extent simply because we're talking about them last being seen, the girls, Ivy and Brittany, last being seen at 1:22 a.m. this morning, local time. So what happened on this property where 7 people are now dead? It's frightening to think about. It's also, I'm sure, quite the task for law enforcement officials to process this scene. It doesn't appear to be... It might be spread out over an area, is what I am trying to communicate. I could be wrong, but based, of course, on what we're seeing, it might be, it just might be, on different areas here on the property. But it's hard to say. It's hard to say for sure. It's clearly a very large rural property in Henryetta, but the bodies were not found indoors in a structure, in a residence on the property itself. As we look out here, you can see what I'm talking about. It's a very large property. And a lot of the attention has been focused here on this back area. But exactly what happened and how the bodies ended up where they did, unknown at this time. So let's, now that we have the press conference out of the way, let's go to our comment section, talk with you guys here a little bit. And do our very best to answer some questions based on what we know about this story. People are talking about, you know, Jessica is commenting here, coincidental that they found 7 bodies and 7 people were stated as missing on Ivy's mother's Facebook page. Be very careful about connecting the dots because there's still so much unknown. That press conference gave us very little new information, and the identities are, of course, going to have to go through paperwork with the medical examiner's office. Next of kin has to be notified. We don't know if next of kin notifications have begun, based, of course, on the active identification process that is currently underway. People are making note about some of the observations here about the property itself, and I don't want to speculate too much. I'd like to rehash what I was talking about as far as the property. We don't know where the bodies were found, but what is noteworthy about this property is how large it is and how far back vehicles had to drive to get to that one section of the property. Here we see one of the main roadways. That might be Holly Road. That has been mentioned as the address. I'll spend a few minutes just reading some hashtag HeyJB questions and comments. And people have been asking, too, is this a murder-suicide? People are wondering that in our comment section. While you might be wondering, people might be wondering, my goodness, what if it wasn't a murder-suicide, then what other possibilities exist for something like this? If no suspects are at large and they're still processing this scene, what could it? There could have been a violent breakout that occurred at some point on this property that led to injuries to multiple people. There could have been an occurrence on the property, an accident of some kind that led to the injuries of multiple people, on the fatal injuries to multiple people on the property. There's so many other possibilities, other scenarios outside of murder-suicide. And while I think that a lot of people are putting on their detective hats and have watched enough true crime documentaries to know that certain likelihoods are more likely than others, we have no information, no evidence at this time that this is a murder-suicide. So I know people keep mentioning that in our comment section, but please be open-minded and understand that with this being a rapidly developing story, we don't have many details to go by, especially when we're getting press conferences like the one that we just had, where they're playing it very, very, very close to the chest as far as the details that are being provided to the public. Jane, hashtag AJB, have they said anything about the missing teens potentially being among those found? Local law enforcement has confirmed that they believe that the two missing girls are among the deceased on the property, as well as a Jesse McFadden, who was mentioned in the alert. Yeah, so here's another example. If a violent act occurred, and again, this is Dark Heart is in our YouTube comment section saying hashtag HJB, if it's 6 against 1, if one person was committing a violent act, they could have mortally wounded him trying to fight back. Yes, there's all of these different scenarios that exist outside of murder-suicide. So everyone who wants to just point to that immediately, Brickfa wants to know, hashtag HJB, how long had the teens been missing? The missing persons alert was put out today, and last seen 1:22 a.m. Yeah, no, there's a lot of speculative comments in our comment section. That's normal. That's normal for a scenario where you're talking about a really troubling headline. And the headline here is 7 bodies found in the search for 2 missing Oklahoma teens. And with so little to go by. And now what happens is because law enforcement, we've seen this repeatedly in the past. This is what happens. Law enforcement, by law, and of course, because of the district attorney's office and their guidance and how they are working this scene from both from a perspective as far as processing the scene for today and tomorrow legally down the road as well, there's not a lot that they can release. They're going to be, they have to identify the bodies. They have to do next of kin. There are policies in place for them to follow certain rules here, follow the book, if you will, on how to work a scene like this, or really any scene, whether it's 7 bodies found or 1 body found. So they're, of course, going to do what they have to do by Oklahoma law. But what then happens in a situation like this, people who clamor for information, who want details, then go to the people on social media who are reporting details. And I'm talking about family members of those who are missing, family members of the deceased, family members of those mentioned on the Amber Alert poster, the missing advisory poster that was put out, as we look here at some of the blue tarp that we were looking at earlier. But please be mindful of the fact that there are families right now that are experiencing their worst nightmare, and social media can just be, just in certain situations, just make things dramatically worse for those families. And so people who just endlessly go after certain other users on social media, pressing for information and trying to, we just please keep in mind that families right now in Oklahoma are living through the absolute worst of the worst. And so they'll be hounded for information. They'll be hounded for details. I'm sure that they'll be hounded for people looking to do interviews. It's just what we see in the aftermath of stories like this. But please remember to try to get your information from verifiable, credible sources of information. It's really important. We have seen what has happened when speculation goes into overdrive, gets put on steroids after a tragic event has unfolded. So Leah says, I'm in a true crime Facebook group, and there are a few members who live in the area. Apparently, James had a court appearance today about another predator case and didn't show. This is accurate, according to KFOR. They reported this as well. Let's listen in here live. Oh, again, a reporter practicing for a live report. This is a live ground shot. Let's show you this. This is live now. So some containers. Don't know if this is on the property or an adjacent property.
At 7 o'clock tonight. Reporting live in Okmulgee County, Aaron Christie, 2 News, Oklahoma.
Larry Ann, hashtag AJB, I just got here. We heard what initially led them to this specific location. Yes, this location is the property of a Jesse McFadden or connected to the McFadden family. McFadden was mentioned in the missing persons advisory, really the Amber Alert in essence, that went out earlier today. Folks, people are asking how you can get me information. You can get me information. I know the comment section can get very manic because I can only read through so many scrolling comments. You can DM me on Facebook, on Instagram. But really, if you really want to get my attention, we have a new email address that's been set up. I know that that's very old school to some people, but heyjb@wfla.com is a great place to kind of cut through all the noise on social media, all the DMs, just kind of a direct to me sort of approach. But I ask that if you send me information, that you make sure that you attribute it, and don't just say, I know my cousin lives in the area and I know what happened, and then give me 3 sentences of speculation. I can't use any of that. And while that might be helpful in certain regards to, if other people come forward with similar information and then we're starting to get, more details, even though I can't really report it, just try to attribute your information. That's what we do, and that's what we ask of you as well. If you're reporting information, if you're trying to get me information, just tell us what the information is, where you're getting it from. But yeah, send it to heyjb@wfla.com. That's a really good way to cut through some of the social media noise. People are saying, hey, JB, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that. But yes, this is a McFadden property. Cindy says we need to pray for families and have empathy. Yeah, look, remember that every one of these individuals we're talking about has family and friends, and this is for many of them, this is going to be the worst day of their lives. We have seen it repeatedly with the stories that we have covered, stories that you have heard of, stories that you haven't heard of, and just remember that we're talking about. It might seem social media. And when information goes through that prism, sometimes there's this disconnect that exists when we just see 7 bodies and we just think 7 bodies, but you don't think of 7 families. You don't think of 7, circles of friends that also are part of this story. So always just try to be mindful of that. In the meantime, let me go back to my email and see what is coming in. Yeah, and apologies. We were talking, I might have mentioned a James McFadden earlier. We're talking about a Jesse McFadden. Did I mention James earlier? And apologies if I did. Oh, I see. There's a reporter at one of our affiliates used James McFadden. And I believe that a correction was then put out. Yes, Jesse McFadden. So if I said James, when I was reading it from somewhere else earlier, folks, apologies for that. That is a Jesse McFadden, confirmed. Let's see here. We'll go back to our comment section perhaps one more time. Brian is talking about the case in Texas. That is on our radar too. As a reminder, you can send if there's certain stories you want us to cover on WFLA Now, send it to WFLA@WFLA.com. But that is a story that is already, without even an email, that is a story that is already on our radar. Yeah, just got an email in and it's referencing newson6.com out of Oklahoma. Yes, James McFadden was a registered sex offender, and he was scheduled to appear in court today. That is true. We had that that earlier. But here, we have some details. News on 6 is reporting some details on the charge in 2017. He was charged in 2017 with using a contraband cell phone in prison to send sexual messages to a teenage girl. He was in prison at the time after being convicted of rape in 2003 in Pittsburgh County. Yeah, really extremely troubling story here, everybody. Just really troubling. But what actually happened on this property remains a mystery. We have no idea. Folks, that's going to do it for me here on WFLA Now. I really appreciate you joining us here in the Stream Center. Thanks so much. The best ways to reach me, I know that people are throwing a lot of information my way and asking me a lot of questions, also submitting story tips or story requests, stories that we can do on WFLA.com and do here on WFLA Now. Different resources for you. You can always follow me and DM me. I'm relatively good at responding to my DMs, though I get a lot of them. Facebook, Instagram, those are probably the two best. I'm also on TikTok, but I really just use that to post content. But really, heyjb at WFLA.com, just emailing me directly, that's also a really good way as well. You can also, if you want certain stories to appear on WFLA Now, you can email WFLA at WFLA.com. That'll get to our news staff here at WFLA. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, the latest on this story, you can find it on WFLA.com. Thank you to our YouTube moderators for helping out in our YouTube comment section. Facebook Live audience, YouTube Live audience, thanks so much for bearing with us on the technical difficulties at the beginning of this live stream. Again, the very latest on the story and developments as they happen on WFLA.com. Thank you to KFOR for that aerial video and the reports that we got, the signal as well. The press conference came from them as well. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time, folks.